Good morning, everyone, and you're very welcome to this morning's webinar, Unlocking Career Opportunities with a particular focus on APAs and QFAs in 2024. My name is Eva Lavin, and my role in LIA is Head of Education. This is a 30-minute webinar, and it's delivered in collaboration with 360 Search, who are an industry-leading recruitment consultancy firm specialising in the financial services industry. And I'm delighted to be joined by two of their recruitment consultants today, Holly Rales and Kate Corcoran. And they're going to be bringing a wealth of knowledge and experience to this webinar. So whether you're embarking on your finance career journey, you're seeking new opportunities, or maybe you're kind of aiming for professional growth, then today's session is definitely tailored for you. During the webinar, Holly and Kate will be answering questions that I suppose they're asked frequently, but they'll also be answering questions that you might have during the webinar and also at the end. So if you do have any questions, please pop them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and then we'll take some time as well at the end to answer these. So I'm now going to hand you over to Holly and Kate, who will take you through this discussion, and then I'll come back then at the end for the Q&A piece.
Eva, thank you so much. And my name is Holly Rales, and I'm so happy to be here today with Kate, and we're thrilled to have the opportunity to talk you through a few insights into the life and pensions industry from a recruitment perspective. So in our jobs, we speak with APA and QFA candidates, I suppose, on a daily basis, supporting them within their career journey. So what we're going to go through today is kind of a couple of slides to cover off on some industry insights. We'll touch on career paths within the industry and areas for professional growth, and we'll discuss some common questions that we get asked by candidates. So everyone here today obviously values their career, which is why you're on this webinar, but everyone's probably at a different point in their career. So if there is any questions, as Eva said, feel free to pop them in the box as we go, and we can try and get to them at the end, or mine and Kate's contact details will also be on the last slide, so you can feel free to reach out to either of us privately. Okay. So first off, just to touch on a few key factors that are at play really when we're discussing hiring and recruitment in the life and pensions industry. So to begin with, there's the national employment rate. So we're all probably aware that at the moment Ireland is sitting pretty much at full employment. I think unemployment rate stands at about 4.9%, which is up slightly from last year, but still pretty much full employment, which means, I suppose, that the supply of jobs is greater than the demand for those jobs. And then that kind of couples with the life and pensions industry specifically, where we really are seeing a skills shortage. Regulatory change is quite common within the industry, I suppose, with being quite a heavily regulated environment. And the hot topic at the moment is, of course, pensions auto enrolment, which we're going to see kind of take effect later on this year. And that has and will continue to have a big impact on, I suppose, the demand for hiring within the pensions industry. And then finally, market consolidation, which is something that we've really seen, particularly over the last few years. So we've seen a number of providers who've left the Irish market altogether, and we've also noticed a lot in the broker environment, a number of mergers and acquisitions taking place, and that just means that the potential number of employers within the industry has shrunk, and all of the above factors impact hiring and recruitment.
And just some of, excuse me, just some of the kind of common questions we would get regularly, like, why do you think there is a skill shortage in the industry?
I think there's probably a number of factors why there's particularly a skills shortage if we're focusing on, I suppose, the financial advisor market and the related roles within that market. One is probably it's quite a maturing workforce. So we're seeing a lot of firms that are trying to future-proof their organisations. They're trying to bring in fresh talent because their most experienced advisors are now at an age where they're probably approaching retirement, and there's a bit of a gap in between in terms of experience within the organisation. And then secondly, just an increased demand. So consumers as a whole, they're much more aware now of their personal finances, and they're actually actively seeking financial advice services, and that just puts an additional demand on the industry and people with those skills. And that's just something that's lacking, unfortunately.
And then from your experience, obviously you've spoken to kind of all levels of candidates. How difficult do you think it is to enter the industry without your QFA or APA?
I think it's probably quite role specific, but overall, yes, it is going to be quite difficult if you don't have the APA or the QFA and you're looking to gain employment within the industry, particularly if you're looking to be in a client-facing or advisory consultant type of role. And the reason being, it's actually not out of the choice of the employer. It's actually, with it being a minimum competency to have the QFA to be able to give that financial advice. It's a regulatory piece that's been put in place by the central bank. Do you know, so firms actually, their hands are tied. You might have the best experience in the world, but if you don't have that QFA, you can't be in front of a client giving advice. There's probably a little bit more leeway when it comes to, you know, administration, back office support roles. You're not actively giving the advice or speaking with clients. So if you don't have the qualification, there's a little bit more wiggle room, do you know, and that's why we see that administration roles are generally the area that their entry within the industry. But luckily, I suppose the qualification can be gained quite quickly, can't it? You know, so if someone enters and they might have to take up a support role within 12 months or less, they can have achieved and gained that qualification, which will allow them to then progress within their career and within the company.
Yeah, and especially a lot of employers will support you through that journey, with you know, study days, things like that. So yeah, it is manageable to work full time and complete it.
Yeah, it's just difficult. It definitely is a barrier to entry. Like when I first moved over to Ireland, before I was in recruitment, working in financial services, the QFA wasn't something that existed in the UK or outside of Ireland. So although you have maybe the necessary experience, that needs to be coupled with the relevant qualification as well. So basically, don't delay, get started on the qualification as soon as possible would be the message.
It just opens more doors for you.
Yeah, definitely.
And definitely kind of a pressing question. And over the last 4 years, people kind of queried a lot more in terms of kind of remote and hybrid working. What do you find that most employers expect at the moment?
I'd say it probably varies from employer to employer. We have now got to a stage, thankfully, that employers have maybe more of a blanket policy in place, do you know, so they will offer the same to all of their employees. For instance, that could be 2 days at home, 3 days in the office. And that's probably the most common that we're seeing, hybrid, 2 to 3 days office-based. But that's not to say that we don't come across fully remote roles and fully office-based roles as well. We might also see that some companies, they want you to be fully office-based, potentially for the training period or the onboarding period, and thereafter then you can work on a hybrid basis. And I feel like that's quite good because then you're surrounded by employees who are experienced, have the knowledge, you can freely ask questions and learn on the job. But yeah, each company is slightly different, and when we're speaking with candidates, that's something that we'll discuss with candidates. You know, it might be a case that they're located somewhere which only allows them to work remote or hybrid. That's something that we'll discuss up front, and we can discuss what different companies are looking for, what their requirements are. Great, moving on to the next slide.
So we're going to talk about now kind of career paths within the industry, and if you are kind of taking the first steps and looking for that stepping stone, where it can lead you. So what we tend to see kind of how we've divided is between advisory and consultant. So that can be either corporate or individual. And it can range from client relationship management, financial kind of bespoke planning to kind of private client managers. Administration and back office, they have huge opportunities in it as well, whether it's kind of individual, group, or, you know, depending how technical your knowledge is, going into an operational side. Managers, whether team leader, assistant manager, sales manager, operations manager. And then hugely important is the compliance function. Every company within financial services is regulated by the central bank. And, you know, you have to follow those guidelines. They have to be, whether you're an advisor, administrator, it protects the company, it protects the clients. So it's definitely something we can see growing at the minute. In terms of the different lines of business within the industry, so whether it's individual life and pensions or kind of corporate and employee benefits, they can range from, you know, the new business or existing business administration. You can move into more of a technical role that would look like power planning or an employee benefits analyst, where you would kind of do all the pre-market research work and kind of getting portfolios ready, getting presentations ready for the consultants to be able to do their job and make these sales. So definitely it wouldn't be a step-in role, but it's something that you can gain into without having to go into kind of a target-driven role. And then the next steps from that are going into, you know, consultancy, advisory, bespoke financial planning, more on the individual side. Mortgages as well. Mortgages, especially with, you know, you can go from being, you know, the sales, the consultant, or going into, you know, getting the customer to offer or getting them kind of over the line, getting, you know, the deed sorted. So there's definitely loads of areas that you can specialize there. And then wealth management investments is definitely more kind of specific portfolio focused and, you know, focused on the trends that are happening, and can go from advisory to analysts as well.
Yeah, I think pensions, sometimes when we're speaking with candidates, they think they're a pension expert, for instance, but the pensions industry, what we found, it's actually so vast, you know. So you might be a really experienced pensions advisor or pensions administrator on the individual side, but then it comes to corporate pensions and it's a whole different ball game and a whole different skill set and area of knowledge that people need.
You could speak to 8 different people who are pensions administrators, and they could all have a different specialty, whether even on the individual side, it could be a PRSA or ABC. It doesn't necessarily, you not have knowledge in both.
Yeah. And what would your advice be to, I suppose, someone who's in an administration role in any of those lines of business who's looking for options in terms of progression opportunities?
I'd say a lot we speak to do kind of have their eyes on the financial advisor route. I think, you know, if you're selling something or you're advising on something, your product knowledge is key, but there also is kind of personal attributes and skills that you need to have to step into that kind of client-facing, target-driven environment. And there is some people that might have that kind of back-of-house operational skills, whether they go into more of an analyst route or, like we're saying, power planner, or even moving within kind of existing life and business or new business, but going from a group side to a life and pension side. And then not to mention, you know, if it's something that you're really on the ball and you kind of high attention to detail, you could go into a compliance role. So, and then whether it's kind of learning and development, if you've kind of taken part in the training sessions and, you know, you really put your foot forward and you're the person that helps the manager, you can move into a team leader or manager role. Generally with the manager role, you kind of have to be in the role previously to step into it. And I think it is like, you would very rarely see a sales manager that hadn't been a financial planner previously.
Yeah, I think it's important to note, like, that moving into advisory isn't the only option. There's so many options within the industry. It doesn't.
And I think it's the name, the kind of qualified financial advisor. People think, oh, that's where I need to go, but it just means that you're a knowledgeable person, and you know you're verified that you've followed your minimum competency requirements, and you know it's important to have, but it just doesn't mean you have to go into advice.
Yeah, and also there's the option for lateral move. You know, so if you are working in one line of business, i.e., individual life and pensions, there's the option to move laterally into maybe the employee benefit space. Do you know? And if you're in the likes of an administration role, that might be what best suits your skill set, but there's still opportunities to learn and progress, but in different areas of the business in a similar position.
Exactly. So it doesn't have to always be, one way focused. There is so many different opportunities, and people like I mentioned earlier, you could speak to 5 different pensions administrators and they'll be doing 5 different things. So if you want different exposure to working on the employee benefits, group risk, or stay on the individual, or get into investments, it's all they're all tons of opportunity at the moment.
Yeah. And what would you say to someone who's maybe considering that move into an advisory position and is asking, is an advisory position mostly sales based?
Yeah, the short answer would be yes. Technically you're in an income generating role for the business, so sales is the main game, but there can be roles that are client facing, like a client relationship manager, that are more on retention, but there is still a sales element to it. So
yeah, and just as a whole, I suppose, from the jobs that you're working on and kind of the companies that you're recruiting for, Kate, what jobs are you seeing in the highest demand at the moment?
Well, it kind of comes into what you were saying earlier about skills shortage and kind of a maturing workforce. Something we're really seeing in demand at the moment is fully QFA'd individuals that have maybe 3 to 5 previous experience within the role. Definitely a demand for that. And then another kind of element you mentioned is the pensions auto enrollment. Companies are kind of looking how that's going to affect them, what provisions they need to have in place. And that is having a knock-on effect that, companies are seeing, these pension companies want consultants and want the administration staff that are there to support them to be in place for when this influx of new clients become available. And, if it's a thing you have to have in your company, you want to make sure that you're getting the best advice first and you can rely on the people that you're turning to. So definitely can see that. And as we said earlier, it's a hugely regulated industry. So compliance, some of the companies we're working with that would have previously outsourced the function, have a huge demand within the business to be there and be just focused on the kind of requirements in their business. It can be as small as application forms that need to be updated, the fine print need to be updated, AML, KYC, all these things are huge at the moment.
Yeah, I think the compliance demands on companies are just increasing and will continue to increase in such a regulated industry. So that is that we've seen people taking that compliance function back in-house, and a lot of newly created roles in the compliance space within companies within the industry.
And
I had a candidate only recently who was new to an advisory role, and one element of his job was actually going to be to develop his own client base. So not all clients were going to be supplied to him. What advice would you give to someone like that in terms of how you could go about developing your own client bank?
Well, generally, if you are kind of starting off, a lot of companies will have, existing book or will provide you with leads. But if it is a thing you're going in and this is a requirement, I'd say a huge thing at the moment is utilizing your personal branding, becoming kind of a known individual in the market, whether it's using LinkedIn or using other forms of social media, you're posting content and people can turn around and be like, oh, that's a really knowledgeable person. Like even myself, I've seen people, mortgage advisors on Instagram, and my friends have said, oh, any recommendations, what broker would be good? And I was like, well, I see they post a lot and that's why I would have recommended them. So it's definitely a changing landscape within kind of the higher moving into social media. And then not taken for granted, making sure if you are speaking to someone, asking for a referral if you feel you've given good advice and you've done the consultation well, not to be afraid, if you have a business card or what's big at the moment is digital business cards, because a lot of your meetings could be over a video call. So having a digital business card and asking for the business once you feel you've done a good job, or if you're part of a GA club, football club, kind of getting, not being afraid to put yourself out there.
Yeah, really being proud of what you do and making sure everyone within your network, be it friends, family, different clubs that you're in, know that that's what you do. You give advice on, you know, life insurance, pensions, investments, whatever it might be.
And
it's that people can approach you.
And it's, you know, it's people don't know it. Like, I know when I used to do it, like, people don't know about it. So it's a great thing to have the QFA, that you can help these people, because it's not everyday knowledge.
Yeah. Perfect. So I think we've covered everything there. We'll move on to the next slide. So this one just touches on professional growth. And I think realistically, if you're, you know, whether you're looking to just enter the industry, some people on the webinar today might just be entering the industry or might be yet to enter the industry. You might be looking for new opportunities, whether it be with your current employer, going out to the market, looking at opportunities with new employers, or actually just looking to excel in the job that you currently do. Professional growth is really important for all of them. So initially we would say setting goals and milestones, and this just allows you to create an actionable step and actually measure your success. So using the QFA as an example, setting out that in 12 months time, I aim to go from no QFA to completing all of the modules and having the full designation, you know, and then working towards actually how you're going to reach that goal. Then a focus on qualifications and upskilling, you know, so that could be outside of the QFA, you know, once you've got that under your belt. I know that LIA offer an array of other courses and qualifications, you know, so if you are looking to get more technical in the pensions area, for instance, there's different qualifications that you can get there, but also not necessarily industry specific, maybe more role specific. So if you've got your sights set on moving into a managerial role, go out and look and see what courses are available that can enhance your people management skills, and focus on upskilling that way. Maintaining CPD is obviously so important for your qualification and to keep that designation once you've got it, but also with an industry and landscape that's changing so much, it's really important to be keeping your knowledge up to date. Whether you're the person who is giving the advice or not, you need to make sure that you're staying informed on all of the changes happening within the industry and the products. Then expanding your network, and that might be done through actual face-to-face networking events, which are now a thing again. I know that LIA do some face-to-face networking events, actually getting out there, chatting with your peers and people who work within the industry, or it might be done through the likes of LinkedIn. So connecting with other people within your industry, you know, looking at kind of what they're putting out there, learning, engaging, and getting inspired by other people who are working in similar jobs and similar companies to yourself. And then other resources, and there is a lot of free resources out there. One of which is the newsletter that I actually do, which is a weekly newsletter that goes out. It usually will contain an up-to-date news piece of the ongoings within the industry at the moment. It'll include various opportunities that are out there at the moment. So that's free to subscribe, and that'll land in your mailbox every single week. And there, I suppose, a few different ways in which you can contribute to your own professional growth.
And in terms of how would you best recommend an individual to approach their employer about new opportunities or about progression?
Yeah, I think this is something that we kind of say to our candidates, like from the first conversation, really, if they're going elsewhere and looking for opportunities elsewhere within the industry, have you approached your employer first? Is there opportunities for you in your current company? It can be a bit of an awkward one, but I feel like most people, you know, they have their one-to-one with the manager, they might have a monthly review, they might have a quarterly performance meeting. There is usually an opportunity where you can sit down there with your manager and you can broach the subject. And I think until you've actually asked the question, your employer, your manager, they might not be aware that you are at the point in your career where you're looking for that next step up and you're looking for the next opportunity. So it's something that you need to voice. Separately, you might be in a slightly bigger organisation where there might be a jobs board, there might be upcoming roles which are advertised and are open for you to apply to. That's a very obvious way for you to express your interest in different opportunities within the organisation. And then I'd say maybe more of a less obvious route would be to maybe just slightly putting your hand up if there's ongoing projects within the company and there's opportunity for you to get involved. Put your hand up, say you want to get involved in that project. If you can see your manager or another colleague is inundated with work and you can give a helping hand, make it known that you're there, you're looking to develop, you're looking to take on extra areas of responsibility, and that way you'll probably get a little bit more notice.
Kind of nearly means that when the role's coming up, they already think of your name without you having to actually.
Exactly. And it might be a case that that opportunity doesn't already exist within the organisation, but if you're a valued employee, then your manager might put some kind of path in place for you to get to where you want to be in a set amount of time, you know.
Yeah, kind of having the checklist of saying, right, if you want to be in this position in 6 months, this is what you need to show, or what kind of steps you need to take, or whether it's, you know, having your QFA passed.
Yeah, but I think it's one of them, if you don't ask, you don't get. You can't just assume that your manager is going to know that you are looking for opportunity and growth, so make sure you ask the question.
Definitely. And then say within the organisation, kind of the road you want to go isn't available. How do you best position, how would someone best position their experience to a new employer?
I think the first part is really kind of identifying what your key skills and your key attributes actually are. And from that, you can then determine what it is you're looking for. So what role and what route are you looking for in your career? Do you know? And from there, it gives you a good starting place. Then from the outset, once you've maybe seen a job spec that you like the look of, you've seen a company that you like the look of, you've done your research, make sure you tailor your CV to that specific job. Go through with a fine-tooth comb and identify areas that you tick the box. So just for like a really small example, they may mention the specific CRM system that they use, and that is something that you have experience with. Make sure it's highlighted on your CV. Like, we both know that hiring managers probably spend like 3 seconds glancing at a CV. You know, they're really busy. They don't have time to be reading every word written in a CV. So make sure you highlight the experience that you can bring to that specific role at the top of your CV. Then you can maybe stand out by doing a personalised cover note. You know, trying to uncover what it is the company you're looking for and how you can fill what the company you're looking for, and outline that in a cover letter. I think if they're using a recruiter, the likes of me and you would kind of do that on their behalf. But if you're applying direct, definitely I would recommend doing a cover letter. Don't be afraid to connect with these people on the likes of LinkedIn. Don't be afraid to follow up if you don't hear back off your application. And yeah, I'd say probably try and use a recruiter where possible, someone who can kind of be in your corner, can understand what your experience is, and will best know maybe what companies you would be suited for.
Yeah, and especially kind of an industry specific recruiter, like, yeah, you can see things in your CV that you might not think are that relevant, or that, you know, our clients are actually actively looking for, but it might not be in the job spec. So there's, you know, a bit more intel. There's more kind of profile building. We build a bio. Like, we would never just send a CV. We make sure kind of that we would represent you the best, but making sure that we're highlighting if you have transferable skills. We might not be exactly where you need to be, but we can see how, you know, your ambition and what you have that will kind of stand out.
Yeah, I think that's the key. If you're looking to kind of take a step up into your next role, or if you're trying to enter the industry from the beginning, then it's going to be a case of you don't have the exact experience. So how can we best transfer the skills that you do have and highlighting that to a potential employer? Great. So that's actually the quickest half an hour ever. That brings us to our last slide, and I think we've probably got a few questions there, Eva, so I'll pass.
Yeah, thank you Thank you so much, Holly and Kate. I think that was great. There's so much information there, and I think there was lots of takeaways as well, which is brilliant. Just before I suppose we do get into a couple of questions, I am conscious of time. But if you do have any, I suppose, specific recruitment related questions, please do reach out to Holly and Kate. Their email addresses are on screen, and they're more than happy to kind of like answer any questions that you might have and help you maybe in your recruitment journey. Also, if you do have any questions relating to the QFA or APA exams, you can reach out to the team in LIA, and that's the email is on screen there. It's education@lia.ie. We have a team here that are more than willing to kind of help you and support you as well if you're working towards getting your APA and QFA exams. We are currently enrolling for the Term 2 exams, which will be held in May, and the close off for registration for those is the 22nd of March. So just maybe quickly, Holly and Kate, 'cause I know we're kind of coming to the end. There is a few kind of, there's actually lots of questions in. Some you've kind of already answered. There's a few, I suppose, questions in relation to people have the QFA now, but maybe they're just not getting noticed, or they're not kind of getting any responses from recruiters. Is there anything else that they could maybe be doing?
Let me take this one.
Yeah.
I think it depends what they're doing at the moment. Do you know what? I think I touched off it then if you're trying to kind of position yourself to a potential employer, and it's the same for a recruiter. And I suppose from mine and Kate's perspective, we're really, really busy. So don't be afraid to follow up. Don't be afraid to connect on LinkedIn, whether it be with a different recruiter, with ourselves, with the hiring manager of a particular company if you're applying for the role. Don't be afraid to send a message, follow up on the application. Hiring managers, I know, and recruiters, I know, are really, really busy at the moment. There's a huge demand for, like, we're working on a huge amount of different roles. So don't be afraid to follow up. And I think once you can get that first meeting or that first conversation underway, then that's how we're best going to uncover kind of the best route for you and kind of start discussing opportunities that we have there available for you. And not everything is actually advertised, do you know? So I think getting that first conversation, don't be afraid as well to actually have a phone call. I know some people kind of want to send a CV and might hide behind an email. So much more gets uncovered through a phone call or a video call or a meeting, do you know? So don't be afraid to get on phone, basically.
Great. Thanks, Holly. And people kind of wondering, is there many opportunities maybe outside of Dublin for QFAs, like they're saying like Midlands, Cork, Donegal?
Definitely Cork definitely would have a huge hub spot, I would say, at the moment. Even Galway as well, and we can kind of see it along the west. Like we've clients in Donegal, we've clients in Wexford, the likes of Portlaoise. It's just, it would depend obviously on the hybrid arrangements that they have, or like we've candidates that commute from Portlaoise to Dublin, and it really just depends what is flexible with your schedule and how happy you are to move around.
Yeah, it's going to be role specific, I think, but like what we refer to with regards to kind of acquisitions and mergers that are happening, some of the companies that we recruit for now are a lot bigger, and they might have multiple offices across the country. Do you know? So it's opened up opportunities to individuals who are based outside of Dublin. Obviously, that does seem to be still where the majority of our roles are based out of. But yes, we do have opportunities outside of Dublin as well.
Right, brilliant. And there is actually a lot of questions in around salary, which is probably very hard to kind of gauge, and I'm sure it probably depends on a number of factors. But for someone who is APA and QFA, is there kind of a salary, like entry level salary gauge that they should be expecting?
Probably something I'd say reach out to us individually, because I think it's very much experience based.
Yeah.
So you might see a role, you might see a role advertised, and it could be 30 to 35,000 salary, which is quite a big bracket, and the person on the lower end of that bracket might have 6 months experience, but the person on the upper end of the bracket might have 3 years experience. So it is very experience based. So I'd say if someone's got a question, and that's why we try to steer away from discussing salaries, please feel free to get in touch with your CV and hopefully we can give you a little bit more of a guide.
And we'd always be transparent on where we feel your kind of experience lies. Like a lot of our clients would nearly, when you send a CV, they'll kind of put your experience compared to other people on the team. And like they would have a kind of very fair salary scale in place already. So they would be able to know from the outset. And we'd have that idea from previously working with them as well.
Yeah, great. I think, look, we might have to leave it there. There is a lot of questions, even in relation to people that have experience, like non-EU experience abroad, that they're bringing back with them. They now have the QFA. They're finding it hard maybe to kind of get into the market. So there's kind of very specific related questions there. So I think for any of those people, please do reach out to Holly and Kate, and they can maybe kind of talk about how they can kind of support you in your kind of recruitment journey. And that's really, I suppose, all the time that we have. But I just want to say thank you so much to Holly and Kate for today. I thought it was brilliant.